Hey everybody. In the previous video, we worked with UV mapping and UV unwrapping. Specifically, we UV unwrapped a couple of cubes in order to have them fit in with some basic textures like this dice that I have here. It's a slightly better version of the dice that I created at the end of the previous video. In this video, we're just going to go ahead and bring it all together and do it again with a slightly more complicated object, and also discuss sewing edges back together in the UV editor. Real quick though, before we do that, the reason I have this dice here is I want to very quickly show the power of bump maps. And to do that properly, I'm going to break the connection with the color so that we can just see what the bump map looks like and see that the bump map does in fact give the illusion of additional detailing and additional modeling when in fact there is none, and the bump map is just doing all the work of giving you the illusion that there is more detail in this model than you would think, especially from a distance. So bump maps are great. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive in with the new thing that we're going to UV unwrap in this video. Okay, let's get to it. We have our new scene here. Let's create our cube. I am going to do this. I'm going to create a playing card box. We made that Joker card 2 videos ago. Now we're going to make the whole box for cards. So here are our dimensions. Let's go ahead and go back into Maya. I'm going to do them from here, but again, you can also do them from the scale X, Y, and Z if you want to. So the width should be 2.5 by height of 1 by depth of 3.5. There we go. There's our dimensions for the playing card box. Wonderful. Let's go into our UV editor. Still have some stuff to do here. Actually, you know what? Before we go into the UV editor, let's finish up the stuff here. Let's create a new material. And let's make it visible. Obviously, it doesn't fit in well now at all. So we're going to have to work on it in the UV editor. Select it here so we can see it. Dim our image a little bit for more control. Wonderful. Okay, so first major thing to contend with this particular project as compared to the dice and the Rubik's Cube is that this is something that we have, this is a primitive that we have actually altered and modeled a little bit by doing some very basic things, such as, if we go back here, changing the width, the depth of this primitive. We have done some very basic modeling to it, and because we have done some basic modeling to it, going back to our UV editor now, this UV shell that we have here is no longer representative of what the actual geometry in our viewport is. So in order to rectify that, first I am going to, as is good practice, delete by type history. Second, going into my UV editor here, selecting my UV shell for all of the geometry. Instead of going into cut and sew like we did in the previous video, we're going to close that and go into unfold. Remember, this is all found in the UV toolkit, which you can find in tools, hide UV toolkit. You can select to show it, and if it is hidden, then you can also find it here on the sides. So UV toolkit. You can also unfold by going into a modify and finding unfold there. But I would rather do it from the UV toolkit because it's much easier to work with from there. So from here, you want to just click unfold. And now our UVs match our actual geometry with all of the minor modeling that we have done to it, i.e. changing the width and the depth a little bit. Now that is representative here in our UV shell. So let's see. Let's see what happens if I straighten the UVs. Perfect. That's going to allow us easier work with them. Let's go ahead and cut them up like we did before. So I'm going to select my edges. Now going to cut sew. I'm going to cut them. And now I'm going to place these shells where they belong. So this one seems to be for the back. So I'm going to place that there. And there we go. Our 6 faces are now in the correct places. Now it's time to actually map them. Okay, basic UV mapping done. Let's talk about sewing edges back together. You may notice, now that I am in edge selection mode, that some of the edges, when every single edge that I am hovering over is actually selecting two different edges. We can go ahead and just dim this even more to make it even more obvious what's going on here. It is because the edge is selecting its natural counterpart via the viewport. So for example, this edge right here, it looks like it's 2 in the UV editor, but in reality in the viewport, it's just the 1. That's why it's highlighting both of them at the same time. So now that I have these two edges selected in the UV editor, which are in reality just the one edge here in the viewport, I can go and sew them back together. And I can do this for any edge that is close enough together. Technically, you can do this with any two edges, but if they're, if they're facing the opposite way from each other, then there's no point sewing them together because it creates weird situations with your UV editor. So any two edges in your UV editor that seem close together are the ones that you would like to sew together as such. And for edges facing the opposite direction, it just indicates I need to rotate my face in order for the edges to align correctly. And now it's all sewn together as such. I'm going to clean up the UVs, add a bevel, continue to clean up the UVs some more. That's all I've got. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.